step down from my last 2 years.
All right, you're all
Giants
set.
when I'll stay on. How's that?
Do you want to get stabbed in the eye with my pen?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Wednesday, approximately 7 p.m., and this is a meeting of the Wareham School Committee, regularly scheduled. First thing on the agenda is public participation. Is there any member of the public that would like to present to the committee? Seeing none, we will move on to good news. Dr. Rabinovitch.
Well, my first item of good news, and this is our first public comment on this, is that I received notice from the Mass School Building Authority that our statement of interest for the Minot Forest building project has been approved to move to the next level. And
How
now,
much do you think you can get for those modulars? You know, those.
At least $1.98.
It is winter time.
When's the bonfire?
I would say a lot.
Wait a minute, didn't they get a lot for the floor of the Celtics when the Celtics moved?
Jeez.
we haven't contemplated that, but I would be happy to donate the proceeds back to the general fund. I have a second piece of good news. I have a letter here from Susan Green, the acting Council on Aging Director, thanking Mr. Russell T. Hart, the music teacher at the Deacon's School. Dear Mr. Hart, forgive my delay in sending this letter to thank you for bringing the elementary grade students to the Wareham Council on Aging last month to perform for our seniors. They were a delight, and everyone thoroughly enjoyed the show. Some of the holiday hats were very festive and served to get everyone in the spirit of the season. We hope this can be a reoccurring event, as the students are welcome here at any time. So, thank you to Mr. Hart and the children at the Deacon's School for sharing their talents with the Council on Aging. That's all.
Great. Kenny, any good news?
Other than my Giants winning and going to the Super Bowl, I'm all set.
Did you say your Giants?
The New York Football Giants, soon to be Super Bowl
You know,
champs.
the
Thank
governor
you.
says, the governor of New Jersey, where I grew up, says they're the New Jersey Giants.
You know, he was my favorite student, and I really love him like a son, but he is really foolish.
All set, Mr. Chair.
Vikings basketball team is still undefeated, yes?
Undefeated.
14-0.
Tough one yesterday, though. Tough one.
We'll take tough as long
I
as the
know.
outcome is.
Yeah.
Dr. Sylvia, do you have any good news?
No, I'm just happy that the Patriots will be able to redeem themselves against the New York Giants, and I will call up my friend while he's crying in his soup on Super Bowl Sunday.
Rachel? Rhonda? Can't follow that, right? Right. And Jessica is not with us. I think we can move on to the minutes of January 11th. Any additions or corrections or deletions?
Move approval of the minutes of the meeting of January 11th as recorded.
Before we get a second, there was a comment that I appreciated from yours truly about the tennis team and the bullying, the concussion policy. It implies that the entire team has done so. It was simply some members. So I wouldn't want to have it, have their 100% participation implied.
Where that is, 'cause
Right here,
Let's see,
the committee reports.
concussion policy.
maybe it was,
Girls tennis team?
Yes.
That one? It's right in the beginning.
Oh, I see.
yeah, it's in the
Okay.
beginning.
All right,
The third bullet.
all right.
If you
Some-
just put some members of the girls' tennis team
Okay.
and parents reviewed. As corrected, I'll take a second.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained?
Abstain.
One abstention, so that's 401. Committee reports. Rhonda?
Policy Review Committee met. We have 3 policies that are in your packet that we would like approval for you to consider our recommendation. First one is the budget policy. We did review this and had no changes. You want to take them one at a time?
Yes, I do want to take them one at a time. Any comments or questions about the budget policy?
I move we accept as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 5-0-0. Next.
The next one is the collection and fundraising policy. This is where you're going to see the bulk of the changes that the committee is recommending. The original policy for collection and fundraising pretty much had 2 or 3 paragraphs. It was a very broad statement around how we set up, approve, and recognize fundraising activities in the Wareham school system. The Policy Review Committee wanted to take that a little bit further and to build out more, I guess, parameters or just more information regarding collection and fundraising. So you're going to see the policy now has a general statement of the policy, and what that is that we recognize the need for fundraising, that fundraising activities must have prior approval, fundraising goals must be developed in advance, school and outside organizations will do their best to coordinate so then they don't overlap. Then there is a definition of the type of fundraising, which are student organizations, so internal to school organizations that are in the schools, charitable giving campaigns, so that are schools or students that are doing, or groups and clubs doing things, doing fundraising activities that then they can give the funds over to a nonprofit or a cause. And then outside organization fundraisers, which would include PTAs and booster clubs. The third section talks about implementation guidelines. These are, where we had a lot of discussion to make sure that, that we weren't creating all different kinds of guidelines that then would prevent or discourage someone from fundraising, but we wanted to make sure that there were guidelines in here so that everyone was pretty much on the same page of what we expected of fundraising, for the fundraising activities in the Wareham school system. So this is where we said student safety must be promoted, participation in fundraising activities is voluntary, so then no one is coerced into participating in the fundraising activities. All efforts will be made to notify parents and guardians of their children's participation. Door-to-door or other solicitations are not allowed, but if you can contact the superintendent. Group incentives are preferred, and it goes on and on. You all have it in your packet, but again, the committee felt that it was important to expand on that policy, so then we had much more detail around the fundraising activities in the Wareham School District.
Questions, comments?
One comment.
Please.
On the door-to-door, I have a problem with that, only because I don't think we should encourage. It almost says it's normally not allowed. I would say it's not encouraged at all. I think it's just, it's too, and I wouldn't want to see any approval by the superintendent, because I wouldn't want to open up this district to a problem if something did happen. I think
Excuse me, Rachel, which one are you talking about?
on the one
I'm
door-to-door.
It's E, under 3.
3 under 3, okay, I'm sorry.
You know, I look at our community and the makeup of the community, and I hate to say it, but there's an element out there that I just don't want to see kids going knocking on doors. I mean, I think it's different if a parent goes to their neighbor or a couple of neighbors or something that they know, but I think that leaves it a little too open, and I'd like to see the district not encourage that at all.
This is one that we had a lot of discussion about, whether to put it in there, just take it out altogether. The committee felt that it was important to at least mention it, so then it's just very clear that we do discourage it, that it's not allowed unless that there is approval from the superintendent. We didn't want to close the door completely and say door-to-door is not allowed, because we don't know of something that might be around the corner. And the one that hit home to me was if there was some sort of disaster and the school wanted to do something, but it was around the, so it was something happened in a neighborhood. There were conversations around this that we didn't want to completely close the door to door, but that it is not normally allowed unless the superintendent agrees. So is your recommendation to change it, so then, or is it to completely take it out of there?
I think where it says students are not normally allowed, it leaves it as this idea that sometimes it's allowed, sometimes it's not allowed. So I just think it leaves us very vulnerable. It takes one kid knocking on the wrong door, and I don't mean to be an alarmist, but it's happened.
Well, and that's the reason why it says any such solicitation must be approved by the superintendent.
Rachel, would you like to make that an amendment?
I don't know, I'd like
For example, to remove the word
Am I
normally.
the only one in the
No, the
committee, or?
The
I mean,
committee
I
was
just thinking-
concerned also.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, that's fine. I just didn't know if I was the only, I would imagine that brought up a lot of conversation, but I'm not comfortable with it.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, through you to Rhonda, is this actually saying the superintendent would have to approve each and every kid to go door to door? Because this is kind of vague.
Any such solicitations must be approved. I think it's that if someone wanted to do a
project.
fundraising activity, and that included, and one of the solicitations would be door to door, in addition to sending out marketing materials or whatever, that the solicitation type of door to door would need to be approved by the superintendent, not each child, but for each fundraising activity.
All right. I don't actually have a problem with this being in there. Maybe if it's 50-50 if you take it out, then maybe you have other situations. I think this kind of explains it, that it's up to the superintendent, because if you take it out, does that mean that certain kids can't go around their neighborhood because it's not in this policy?
I just don't like the fact of leaving it out of the policy, because then people can, they'll say that, if it's not in the policy, then they might say, oh, okay, then it is a way that we can solicit, and we wouldn't have it in there where the only way that would be approved if they talk to the superintendent. And I've been, the superintendent is very clear on that. That is not something that he would approve unless it was a crazy circumstance.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, through you, I just want clarification. Rachel, were you looking to remove this or change the wording?
I don't know. I mean, for me, I don't allow my children to do any type of door-to-door. I don't like kids coming to my door either at the same time. But I also I understand what you're saying. I think you're saying that this is kind of an extreme case. It wouldn't be like, oh, just selling whatever, going around door to door. And I would hope that parents would go with their children. But I also know that there's a lot of parents that won't. And that's, it opens a door, and I don't want to see us, something happen, like, well, they were fundraising for the school, and something terrible happens. I'm not so sure that the wording in here is strong enough.
So if we took out normally,
Not in,
And the second sentence as well.
well, I don't even mind if any such solicitations must be approved by the superintendent. That's something, if it is a group that comes and they're gonna have parental supervision, and like you said, like if there was like a community thing that they needed to work on, that there was proven parental supervision on those things, then it does things. I would almost like to say it's not allowed, but any such solicitations may be approved by the superintendent, so that it still covers you for the thing, but it will not, because like this one, I say not normally allowed, but it's like, it kind of leaves it a little bit open to me, like I'd look at that and go, well, sometimes they allow it, so I guess it's okay.
Dr. Sylvia, any thoughts?
Yeah, I do. There was a lot of discussion. I think Rhonda's done a wonderful job in explaining it. I can understand Rachel's concern, especially this day and age, because we all realize, we pick up the paper every day, or we see it on the news every day. There's a lot of nutcases out there. And even if the superintendent allows door-to-door solicitation by our students, the school department is still responsible if we sanction that activity. You can't take away culpability. If that's a sanctioned activity and we're having door-to-door, and God forbid something happens to one of our students, I think we're still culpable. However, I think that one of the main reasons why that was put in there, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rhonda, was because part of the fundraising effort is outside groups also. And outside groups depend very, very heavily on door-to-door solicitation, businesses, and so forth. I know for a fact that when I was at the high school, we earned over $3,000 in the auction spaghetti supper, and that's soliciting businesses to donate services and goods and products that could be auctioned off. But that's a little different than just going door to door, cold canvassing, so to speak. But I think that it might be something to consider here, that take the word by students out and just say door to door or other direct solicitations are not normally allowed. Any such solicitations be approved by the superintendent. That leaves the door open for outside groups, and it doesn't specifically state that students would be involved or even encourage students to involve in that activity. So if you could just remove the word by students, and just simply say door to door or other direct solicitations are not normally allowed, I think that might solve the problem. That's just, I don't know if that would solve the problem, but I do understand why it's in there. The reason it's in there is because we want to accommodate those outside groups that depend very heavily on outside solicitation. And some student groups that do too, like I just gave you an example. That they get a lot of services and goods donated for sale to help defray the cost of the DECA program.
Dr. Rabinovitch?
And it almost seems like it's a K-8 versus high school, but I was going to say I am very comfortable with taking the word normally out, having a period at the end of allowed, and getting rid of the last sentence. So door-to-door or other direct solicitations made by students are not allowed. In my experience, the people that did the solicitations to build businesses were the advisors.
No.
But
No, kids go out where they work, in the mall, go to different stores, people they know that are in business.
But that's different than door-to-door.
Correct.
It's not the same as,
But it's still direct.
like you said, cold
Right,
canvassing.
but it's not cold canvassing, but it's still direct solicitation.
I must say that I appreciate the fact that Rachel brought this up, because I completely agree. Statistically, I have read more than once that for a police officer, a random stop is one of the most dangerous things that they do, because they never know what they're going to run into when they have a random stop of a vehicle, for example. The idea of one of our students randomly going up to a door, and we cannot guarantee that he or she won't be alone, and exposing him or herself to God knows what on the other side of that door, I'm extremely uncomfortable with that. And for the school committee and the school department to be responsible for that event makes me very uncomfortable. I would support an amendment for discussion and a vote that would simply eliminate the word normally and eliminate the second sentence.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'm comfortable with that. I think that the way that the committee felt is that they agreed with everything. We had that discussion with everything that the committee is saying right now. I think that the reason why we wanted the policy in here is to leave it up to the superintendent in that rare case. And so, but I don't think that anyone on the committee would disagree with what was stated here or to that amendment. So I'm comfortable with that amendment.
Okay, would you like to make that amendment, Rachel?
To
Delete the word normally.
delete the norm,
And eliminate the second sentence.
I think Kenny had something he wanted to add.
Sorry, Ken, go
Before we
ahead.
do anything, I don't wanna.
I'm just piggybacking off of what Rachel was saying. I think when you're dealing with something like this, and we're gonna do it, I really like to see something in the language that says children K through 8 or K through 10 doing door-to-door that are approved by the superintendent must be accompanied by a parent or an adult, because I've had kids come to my house that I know were in 7th grade with nobody with them saying, I'm here selling books for whatever, at a certain school. So I think this is a real tough one to struggle with, but since we're going around, if you're going to do that, I think we need something in there that says they have to be, even, if you approve it taken out normally and all of that, that doesn't say that a child can't be without an adult.
But it,
So-
through
Yes,
you,
it
Mr.
does.
Chair?
Sorry, go ahead.
So it would now read, door-to-door or other direct solicitations made by students are not allowed. So we don't even have to put in K through 8 or that they have to be accompanied by a parent, because we're just saying that it will not be allowed by anyone,
By students.
By students.
by students.
Which leaves the door open for outside groups.
Correct.
How would the outside group even fall under us?
What
may
does,
not.
PTAs,
Yeah.
boosters clubs?
But they're independent.
Yeah, but it's in the
Yeah.
policy.
True.
Well, and I think that even that still allows students to go to their workplaces and stuff. Those aren't random, so it still keeps that door open for business solicitation.
And I personally don't think it has to go back to the committee, because obviously the policy review committee will review all policies, but we're the policymaker, so we can make any changes we want. So I
So
feel
is the committee
with it.
comfortable with E now reading, door-to-door or other direct solicitations made by students are not allowed?
You're taking out,
We're taking out
Superintendent
normally,
approval?
and we're taking out the
Yes.
last sentence.
I'm comfortable with that.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion
So-
from Rhonda.
I'll make the motion.
Rachel, and a second from
Did you-
Cliff. Any further discussion? Okay, now, that's an amendment,
Just
Correct?
an amendment, yeah.
okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Okay, I have something else I'd like to bring up.
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
You probably
please.
have to vote on the policy as amended.
I'm just, we have.
I don't know,
We
but-
have a main motion, and I was going to,
We have a motion to amend.
yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Do we need a motion to approve the policy?
Well, I'm not comfortable with the policy as is, that's my problem.
Oh,
He's
okay.
going to make other changes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem.
Suggestions.
Can you amend the amendment?
No, I'm not going to amend the amendment, I'm going to amend the main motion, which is
Okay.
what it is now.
Okay.
Okay.
Or I'm going to propose. I must confess that F, I mean, I'm thinking about the fact that, to Mr. Palladino's credit, he has now eliminated study halls. I don't like the idea of fundraising activities during the school day, period. There is a lot to be done during the school day.
Would that include, did they do, and I don't know if any of the schools do a little bake sale or something at lunchtime?
They do bake sales, they do hat sales, they have hat day, they have pajama day, they have all that kind of stuff. All of that is fundraisers. If you take
And
that out, it
sometimes they'll
eliminates
sell-
all of those things.
Sometimes they're selling flowers, you can
Yep,
buy a
carnations at
flower and
Valentine's
the
Day.
fundraiser goes to different things, and I think that covers that. And no, they're silly, but they don't really take away from the academics. It's more just it's a morale and a school spirit.
And by the way, no one ever gave me a Valentine.
They didn't say your
Okay.
incarnation.
Well, thank you, Kenny.
Did we put Cliff's morale on the agenda? I don't recall doing that. I sense there's no consensus on the issue of eliminating fundraising during the school day because it's inbred in a positive way into the school day. Is that a fair statement?
You're very perceptive, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on the now amended main motion? Okay. I will take that as the main motion. Is there a second for the main motion?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Who
Aye.
made the motion?
Oh. Who made the motion?
Nobody. You said
Okay.
you'd take a second on it.
Okay.
Who made the motion?
I amended it.
No, that's
No,
already
no.
done.
Okay, I need a motion.
He's pointing at
I
me.
need a motion for the now main motion.
Which
Somebody-
is,
To
With-
accept the policy with the amendment.
With the amendment.
And as long as we're
So
doing
moved.
that,
no,
there is one minor correction in D, the first D under general statement policy. It should read, "will do their best to coordinate fundraising activities so as to not overlap."
I think Kenny found another one, too.
Yes, Ken?
Mr. Chair, and in B, I believe it should read all fundraising activities. Am I correct?
I think either one would be acceptable, but we don't have Judy
All
Whiteside here to
fundraising
correct
activities.
us.
Oh.
Sounded fine to me.
Activity is singular.
It certainly is.
It's changed.
Okay, change.
So it is written, so it shall be done.
Use it that way, shouldn't it?
Okay.
I thought that's fine.
So
So
the
in-
motion is as amended.
As amended, but the main motion was put forward by
Rachel just said she did.
I'll-
Rachel. Fine,
we'll take
okay,
it.
and the second,
So
Yep.
it's already touching me.
Cliff? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500.
And who's on first?
What's on second?
Oh, my.
Okay, next policy, please.
The internet safety policy. There were, this is a policy that came out of the, sorry, Terry,
Bullying.
the bullying. It's not the bullying policy, it's the bullying
Law.
law, thank you. This is a requirement from the bullying law that we have an internet safety policy. This was given to us as a recommendation from our director of technology. We approved it, and it's up for review of this committee. Just so you know, when we first started reviewing this, we talked about things that didn't go far enough, and it needs to include this. We have an internet usage policy that the committee has asked to review that policy, which does take it to the next level about the proper use. This is specifically for the purpose that came out of the bullying law. So that is in front of you. And can
Thank
flip
you.
it.
Anybody have any questions or comments?
Mr. Chair,
Okay.
is
Yes.
this, so this is a brand-new
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
This is relatively new.
Under access to inappropriate material, the third word is extend, and I think it meant to be extent.
to the, correct.
And I appreciate the fact that we avoided the acronym SIPA and actually spelled out Children's Internet Protection Act. Yes.
Mr. Chair, with the grammatical correction, I make a motion for approval of the internet safety policy as submitted.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 500. Thank you.
You are welcome, thank you.
I think we have,
We have one more policy that Anna,
yes, it's a safety policy, so I draw your attention to the screen. Yes, Anna?
No, that's a committee report. That's a safety committee
Committee.
report, I think.
That's not a policy committee?
You're just doing a report, it's not a policy. No, no. So is there anything else from the policy review?
No, that's it.
So we're
Yes.
here, all right.
We're here.
We hand out a binder. The company will go through the program with you, gives us one binder, so I'm trying to give you an idea of the resources that we have for this.
You don't have to download
Here,
it.
over the summer, it was actually the police department, Lieutenant Walsh that brought.
You need a mic.
you need a mic.
And you may want to be a little bit louder.
Can you hear me?
so-
You can?
The mic is just for the TV.
Yeah, okay. Over the summer, Lieutenant Walsh had brought this particular program to my attention. He had found it in one of his emergency responder type meetings. And what this company does is multi-stepped. They come in, they assessed our buildings, they created footprints, layouts of all the floors and all the key components, mechanical systems, entrances, everything. So that was the first step. They kind of captured all that information. And now, basically, it is a web-based access program. All the principals, custodians, emergency responders are able to access this site. I think the best way to really is just to show you. Each one of our schools, I'll pick the high school. We'll just do one school for now. The purpose is really to have a resource that can be accessed very, very easily in many different ways. So whether it's web-based or you've got it on a thumb drive, we're thinking that in all the police cruisers, they would be in a thumb drive, so that in the advent of an emergency, whether they're in the cruiser or it's one of us, we can access this even off-site, anywhere, as long as you can have access to the internet. And it will immediately, the first component is to provide a lot of contact information. All the emergency responders, our head custodians, everyone and anyone that could have a role in responding to a multitude of emergencies that we could end up experiencing. So that's the first page. We go into providing utility information, contact numbers. They look at being able to look at building features. For example, whether there's closed circuit cameras, whether there are motion detector devices, and you can just kind of read it right down, looking at really communications, hazards, building systems, and all. And as we come down, transportation contact information. And then page 4 of every school plan is an aerial shot of the buildings. And again, for our police, for our emergency responders, very important for them to be able to orient to the 4 sides of the buildings to figure out where they want to set up a command post in the event they need it. And the next is really just a footprint of the entire building. So this is more of a general type of footprint. Which is helpful because it clearly labels which is what we call the alpha side. Side A of the building is always going to be considered the alpha side. And in an emergency, our protocol calls for the building principal, a representative from the superintendent's office, either myself or Dr. Rabinovitch, have to remain with the emergency responders at where they're going to establish their base, their command base. And basically, the direction is, it will be at the Alpha side in the front entrance of the buildings until they decide where they want to move us. Then you basically just go through, this is the first floor of the high school. What's really nice is that we have not really had really nice plans that, if people have said to me over the years, oh, can you just give me a plan of the high school floor? We were working off of the original engineer's design that you couldn't even read what the room numbers were. Basically what we had was really useless. You'd have to pull out a huge blueprint to be able to get this kind of orientation in the building. This is a feature that you'll see along all. For example, if the key in the legend, they have certain links. So if we needed to know where the water shutoff is, you hit the link, and the link will automatically take you to where in that building, and happens to be, let me show you up here, here's the water. So we know, okay, it's going to be in the boiler room, it's there. They do this for water, electrical, gas shutoff, boiler, if your boilers have a particular type of mechanism that, it's basically, it will allow them to be able to shut down any mechanical system that needs to be shut down in an emergency.
Are you all set, Anna?
A bit. No. Here we go. That's what it. So basically, you can even do a change in orientation. That's the other thing. You can do that. You can reverse and do a. But they put the feature in. I just thought I'd show you. Let's go on to. I'd like to get down to the very end here. On to the middle, because the middle actually is our most complicated building in terms of some of this.
This is the middle?
Yeah. So, for example, here again, the footprint of the middle, you get the layout of the floor, entire first floor, all the rooms, every possible storage room, stairwell, anywhere where a perpetrator could end up. They clearly made sure that that is
It's going to help on that.
delineated on the plan.
Are you ready for questions, Anna?
Yep. And then basically, you're just looking at, then what they do is all the different entrances. All our doors are clearly labeled, marked. They've got all these different links, and it's a nice enhancement, basically, to our emergency preparedness plan. The really good news is that the actual cost to set the program up was $12,648, of which I wrote a grant to our insurance company for $10,000, and they gave it to us to be able to pay for this program. So the net was, what we spent was actually $2,648, because they consider that increasing, we have less liability, having that much more control in terms of our sites. Any questions?
Ken?
Since it is security, it's probably a foolish question, but I imagine that everything is password protected, because in that thing you have a a thumb drive or whatever, that if that got lost, most thumb drives you put in, you might not need it. Is that, all of that is taken care of in this program?
Everyone has their own individual password. And we have unlimited access, so we can add people. You know, the training, I trained in September, was the head custodians first and the emergency responders. Then I had them come in as a group to establish, you know, passcodes for them and that. We haven't, they gave me, that's a thumb drive. They give to us in the event we need to print out something, like we want to reproduce one of the floor plans, so that we can do that easily and not have to do it from the site. When you do it from the site, it doesn't come out as well. Personally, I don't like the idea of having it on a thumb drive. We can get, I mean, we have it in the event that, what if the internet's down and we can't get to it? You know, that would be the only time then we'd use a thumb drive, and we were thinking maybe of locating them in the Knox boxes for the schools, as well as, you know, a preliminary type of plan. We'll try to do that. Fire department likes that idea.
And who has access to the binders and how many? Is there one at every location?
One binder in my office, that's it.
There are none at the individual schools?
No.
They have to go online.
They go online, yep. They would use their, you know, password and go online and access it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
How is it going to be updated? Who's responsible for the upkeep of the information that's on there? Okay.
Me, myself, and I, so as things change,
Facilities.
they just want one person designated in the district that would then make the company, make the contact with the company to periodically update or make any revisions to the data.
So you're communicating with the building managers as well as the principals on, and they know to contact you if there are any major changes?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And the only other thing is, from the contact information sheets in there, have the principals reviewed the contact information and
Yes.
for each one of their buildings, and they've
Yeah.
looked through them? And
We did that, yeah, long before we put it out to print for the company. They reviewed, and the custodians as well. It was important for them in terms of the physical site to really review to make sure that the team that came in to capture our physical plan actually captured it correctly. And we actually had made some revisions. Some things weren't right the first couple of rounds that we were reviewing. We actually took the whole summer to review this over and over and over again. Kept finding these little things that, you know, we didn't see initially.
And the only other comment that I have is that I share a concern about the security of this information, because there's a lot of information in there. Just that, you know, we have to make sure that it doesn't get into the wrong hands. Thanks. Our safety manual getting in the wrong hands.
Rachel? Cliff? All set?
No, just one question. How far are we in full implementation of the flip charts?
We are, fully.
Fully?
I
Every
have
school,
been
every
able
teacher,
to
every desk?
train. I did after-school orientation and trainings at every school. Most of them I did, I think I did 3 schools in September and then finished the rest of them in November. Co-op is the only one that I just got to, like, in December.
So every
Right,
desk,
so
every,
sat down, oh, yeah.
every desk,
all
every
the
teacher,
staff.
all staff?
They all have
And
a
how many
flip
mock,
chart.
how many mock situations have we had up to this point?
Actually, I'm collecting that data right now for our district review. The principals have been emailing me, like, just off the top of my head. I believe the high schools had like 5 or 6 dates, you know, because they were asked to practice shelter-in-place drills as well as lockdown.
Okay.
And using different locations for evacuations. That's also a part of this plan. In the past, creatures of habit, we basically, the fire drill destination, that's where we go for all our drills. And what we've learned is that, no, they actually have designated zones. So every school has 4 zones. And they've said, practice going to zone A, practice going to zone B. One of the zones is the furthest point possible from the building, so that if it were a hazardous material situation, we know we're going to evacuate to that zone that happens to be the furthest from the physical plant. And
Thank you.
but all the schools, they have been practicing. I've gotten that information.
Thank you.
Do you think that perhaps police and fire should have a copy of what's on that thumb drive?
They can
They have
access it
access
through
from the
the
internet.
website.
They have passwords.
But
They
as,
have
as
access.
Dr. Sylvia would remind all of us, you know, those things sometimes go down. They're inaccessible. And in an emergency, you don't want to be pounding the computer and saying, this damn internet, I can't access it.
I think that's part of why we do have the one notebook, because someone from Central has to be at the situation, whether it's myself or Dr. Rabinovitch, and push come to shove, we could bring that with us. I'd be leery of leaving, I don't
Well,
want too much.
I guess the larger question is, these
information out there.
Be Safe people obviously have done this many times. Is it standard protocol to have this information with police and fire? If not, I guess I'm wrong.
Web-based, yes.
Web-based
Yeah,
only.
They actually recommend web-based and not to, for the security
Okay.
concerns and reasons we have, not to have too much in terms of hard print out there.
Okay?
We don't want that, we definitely don't want that getting in the wrong hands. And if,
Right.
if the
And if it's
internet
just,
is
we
secured,
can't control, we can control it here
Exactly.
on site, but once we, hand it out,
But-
I can't control what's
Please.
gonna happen.
we don't want to get in the wrong sides because, Columbine is still pretty fresh in my memory.
It's hard to get it out, yes.
But I know that I've been around long enough to know that there are times that you and the superintendent are not in the office there.
And that's why.
I think that happens more.
Michelle Ruiz and Lynn Westgate.
So they would
and
also-
Dave, my personal
they would also
secretary,
be
will know
deemed
the
designees.
location, and they know
Very good.
exactly where the emergency radios
Excellent.
are, the two that are in our office, that we can
Excellent.
communicate on our own band. And enough people would know. if
Thank
we
you.
Thought about that.
Okay. Anything else for Anna?
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you, Anna. Appreciate it.
Welcome.
Barry, your report?
Okay. Yesterday, Mr. Luzon and Mrs. Rotella and I were in Framingham for the day. It was our third trip there, I believe, for a full day, participating in the 2011-12 Mass, and I apologize for all of the letters,
Alphabet
but
soup.
the Mass DSAC, Districts Systems Accountability Center, Collaboration Institute for special and general education leaders. Yesterday was the third full day, and it was about the tiered system of support. I'm sorry, I'm going to give you some more initials. The Massachusetts Tiered System of Support, which is new from DESE, is called MTSS. The MTSS focuses on system-level change across the classroom, school, and district to meet the academic and non-academic needs of all students.
My head hurts.
I understand. You are going to receive in the mail from me this handout, which is multi-pages. And I'm sorry, I forgot to email it today, but you will get it on Friday when I'm back in the office. And I think the important part here is, for the first time, what they've done with this new initiative is they have linked it to the district standards and indicators. So when, in the first week, full first week of February, when our district review is here, they will be looking for certain evidence, such as district governance and leadership, and this new system is tied to that. So what we call our RTI system, they've taken RTI, they've taken a behavioral system, PBIS, and they've put it together with other supports, both academic and non-academic. The bottom line out of all of that verbiage is that they have come up with a way that they want districts to make sure that the curriculum is accessible to all children. And it isn't anything new, it's just being packaged a different way, but I wanted you to hear the initials and see some of the verbiage so that if you're asked about it, you'll kind of know what they're talking about. So I will send this to you by email on Friday, and if you want more information on it, I'd be happy to give it to you at a later date. But
I can't wait.
Comment?
Yes, Dr. Sylvia.
I'm not too concerned about understanding what they're talking about. I'm more concerned that they understand what they're talking about. Thank you.
that wasn't a question.
Okay, would you like to elaborate on that, or you think that speaks
No,
for
it's
itself?
just, I guess I've been in this business too long, because it's more gobbledygook, it's more letters, it's more framing things that already exist in a different way, and it's about spending resources on these things when local cities and towns are dying for the state to fund their own mandates. And to me, it just, I know I'm a cynic, and I know I go off on my tangents, but when I hear stuff like this, I can't help but think that here we go again. Some more mandates, some more alphabet soup, some more jobs in Malden or wherever that need to be funded, and meanwhile, they don't even fund their own mandates. So please forgive me for my cynicism, but I've been around a long time, and I got the proofs in the pudding.
Thank you. Anything else you'd like to report on?
Yes. On Monday evening, our design selection committee met. Dr. Sylvia represented the school board. We had very good representation. We had somebody from the capital planning. We had somebody from the finance committee, Dr. Sylvia, myself, Anna, and a member of the construction industry in town. Mr. Rapetti was there. And we opened up, I believe it was 7, Anna? Was it 7 or 6? 7 proposals about the master plan. And they all looked great. We came to consensus on the rubric that we're going to use. We've taken them home with us. We're going to be rating them, and we're getting back together in the middle of February to rate them and to decide which ones we want to call in for interviews to help us make up our mind about who would be best to do this project. So it was exciting. We worked well together, and I felt like we accomplished a lot on that first meeting. So that's all I have to report.
Okay, let's move on to the budget.
Okay. I am not planning on getting up and doing another hour presentation of the budget. Some of you have seen it 3 different times.
Oh, I'm so disappointed.
I have taken, hopefully you realize I have listened and have changed it each time, listening to you, adding things to the presentation to try to clarify for people. But I am asking the committee to pass a budget that we need to run the schools.
Is it the one that was in our packet last week?
Yes,
Okay.
and it is for net school spending. And Michelle, do we need 3 separate votes?
Yes.
Okay, so can I ask somebody to, for the first net school spending would be for $27,195,370.
Okay, I'll take a motion to that effect for discussion.
Wait a minute.
In your newsletter, it has it also, the number. Pass that number back to Sylvia so he has that number. Cliff, there's
Yeah, I'm just
about
trying to
3/4
find
way
it.
down.
I know, I saw that. Okay. Is there a motion and a second?
I'm asking for a motion for discussion.
I'll move it for discussion.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, okay. Open the discussion. Dr. Sylvia, did you have something?
There were two line items in the budget that bothered me, and I'm just curious, because what I have is what we did last week.
Is this the 3-pager?
Yes, that's what it
Okay.
is.
This one here.
Yep.
2305.
Classroom expenses.
Yeah. Looking at class size reports, looking at program cuts, looking at what we've done in the past, looking at the negotiated pay raise, I don't think that that's adequate. I really don't. And I just feel that it's not going to be adequate. It's not. It doesn't reflect truly our needs to put the bodies in the classroom. The other one.
Just to be clear, that's, I believe, and Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, that is based on a person-by-person analysis, making this plus any new people that would be involved. It's not.
Right, I understand that the specialists and the instructional leaders, it's all factored in.
No, but in addition to that, the increases associated with more education are there, the
Right.
contractual.
But I'm very concerned about certain curriculum matters at certain schools. I am also concerned about the fact that we have.
So once again, just to be clear, you're saying there aren't enough people in.
I personally don't think that reflects truly our need in putting bodies in the classroom and maintaining the academic integrity of our school department. The other one is textbooks. I just think that textbook number is just absolutely ridiculous. And
Which number?
textbooks,
2410.
was it?
2410,
2410.
page 2,
Right.
fourth from the top.
It's, even though it's gone way up from last year, a textbook budget in 2012 of $134,000, given the fact that textbooks cost $70 and $80 a piece, is ridiculous. So I would definitely entertain some discussion about increasing those two line items. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments, thoughts, changes they would like to make before the vote? Yes.
Just to follow up on Dr. Sylvia's, through you, Mr. Chair, to the superintendent. The textbook at 134,867, and then in FY13 it's 252. Can I get a little background on that?
Yes.
It's going to be math books.
We increased, for both of the elementary schools, literacy textbooks, and we had replacement for the high school. There is, and as Dr. Sylvia is aware, because he and I had a conversation about it, we did not factor in the new texts for math at the high school. And so that would add, and this is a guesstimate on my part, but about $100,000. Mrs. Rhonda is saying up, but we may have to go with a grade at a time just to be somewhat reasonable.
Okay. Mr. Chair,
Yes.
through you to Dr. Sylvia, is the suggestion to look at other line items to move money around to increase that textbook line, or are we looking at increasing that and also 2305 that you mentioned, which would actually increase the budget request of 27, whatever that amount is?
Well, I haven't, I know the people have studied this budget more than me. I'm not on the budget subcommittee, so therefore I am probably speaking a little bit out of turn here. I'm just basing this on a couple of factors, especially the teaching line item. I know we factored in the pay raises, but if you factor in the pay raises and you're showing a 5.5% increase, that's only leaving maybe 2-point-something% in terms of
Dr.
additional
Sylvia,
bodies in the classroom.
Go ahead.
The pay raise for next year is 1.5%.
Okay.
And teachers took a freeze in steps for next year. So normally, the steps would have
Okay.
added another 1.5, so you would be right. But because of the freeze,
Okay.
that's what allowed us to have a smaller increase.
And then the second thing is, I'm not satisfied with I'm not satisfied, and I was very vocal about it, the situation at the middle school, especially in terms of social studies. And I'm not happy with the class sizes. We've got one school in restructuring, and their class sizes are getting to the point where they're too large. And we've got a new school over there. We can't blame not having the room. So I think we've got to look long and hard at putting the bodies in the classrooms. I think that we are looking at the class size reports over at Minot and Deacon's. We see a couple of classrooms that are really bordering the 30 mark, so bordering, not quite there yet. But you've got some 25s, right? Okay. So, and I don't know what that number would be, but I'm going to be hard pressed, even though it's a 5.59 increase in teaching. We've gone too long with cutting programs, cutting curriculum, and in my opinion, putting an extra burden on our teachers by giving them kind of class sizes that are unworkable. So I guess I'm making this. I'm drawing a line in the sand for me, not to speak for the committee. In textbooks, I've stated my case. Right now, when I heard Mrs. Whiteside come before us last week at the joint meeting, saying that the kids are telling her that they have no books, the books that they have are all water damaged, and half the kids don't even have books at the high school for their elective programs, that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable.
You all set, Ken? Okay. Rachel?
I just have to agree with Cliff. I mean, I listen to what my kids say when they come home, and it's not enough. And it's time that I think he's absolutely right. We take a stand in town, and people need to understand that this isn't good enough for our kids. And, we keep hearing that we're supposed to make a wish list. I don't think we should have to wish that our children get educated. I think it's something we should be doing. And I think we've done as much as we can, and we have stretched ourselves as thin as possible, and it's time to now, it's time to push. It's not enough.
Yes. Rhonda?
Most of my comments, what I want to talk about probably can happen after we take the vote on the budget, because mine has to do with what we do from here. But we heard it all throughout this process that that this isn't a wish list. This is what we need this year to provide quality education for our children. But it's what we need, not what would then help us go even further with additional resources to be able to help simple things like upgrading technology, having textbooks for each child. It's that isn't in this budget. New school books from outdated texts is not in the school budget. It is basic to help us stay afloat going into the next year. So I agree that it's not enough. I think that my worry is that the budget that's in front of us right now, we might not get all of that. And it's just, it's crazy to think that we are putting out a bare minimum needs-based budget, and it might not be approved. So, Cliff, I understand where you're coming from. I think my worry is not even getting what we're asking for.
Well, that's the reality of it. I know that. That's the reality. But I just can't in good conscience continue year after year to do without. And to have, you know, one of the graphics that really impressed me the most, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, through you. Through you?
Fine.
One of the graphics that impressed me more than anything was the percent of increase in the two budgets, town side and school side. And if you analyze it over the last 10 or 15 years, you will see that the school department's budget has not increased by any way, shape, or form the extent of other departments in the town. And I know we're the big spender. I know we have the largest budget, but we have, in my opinion, the largest responsibility. So I'm not at the point now where I'm not going to speak up if I think something is not equitable. And from where I sit right now, based on some curriculum needs that we have, conversations with principals, conversations with my superintendent, business manager, curriculum director, I think we have some curriculum needs and program needs that are not being met right now. And I think an additional $100,000 to $150,000 in teacher salaries would be well used. And the textbook thing, I just think that a bare minimum is not enough, because what we've had in the past was absolutely positively not workable. To have an entire school system for year upon year upon year have a textbook budget of about $100,000 is not workable. We've got over 3,000 students in the system. Do the math.
Jessica, welcome. Any thoughts you'd like to share? You can be totally objective. You'll be gone when this budget is implemented.
I agree with what has been said about the textbooks. I have lived with them. Some of them are up to par. Many of them aren't. And it would be a shame to have to continue to see my fellow peers continue on with the same books that I had, knowing that they weren't even useful for me.
Thank you. I won't repeat many of the things that I've already said about this. First of all, down at 0 feet, I agree completely with the comments that have been echoed about the
2305.
No, not 2305, the textbook, 2410. It is totally unsatisfactory. Just so everybody understands, the actual description of 2410 is textbooks and related software, media, and materials. In other words, the physical resources necessary for our teachers to be able to do their jobs. It's that simple. I would like to add $100,000, and I would appreciate it if someone could put this in a motion. I would like to add $100,000 to that account, but because I'm also a little bit of a pragmatist, I would like to take $100,000 out of 2325, and that is substitutes. Thanks to the efforts of Ms. Miranda and Dr. Rabinovitch, it is not clear to me that $480,000 in substitutes can be justified, and it's growing at over 9% between the 2 years. It's also clear to me from looking at this, and I have been looking at this for 2 months now at least, it's also clear to me that this is not a reflection of poor attendance on the part of the teachers. This is a reflection upon teachers being pulled out of the classroom and substitutes being called in. So one way or another, we can't spend $480,000 on substitutes. We have to keep our teachers in the classroom and at the same time give them the resources. So my recommendation is that we take $100,000 out and bring that down to $380,000, which is still a lot of money, and put that $100,000 into 2410, which is where the textbooks and other related materials for our teachers are. So that's one thing I would like to see as an amendment if my colleagues would agree to that. Secondly, I want to give people a little information. Today, the governor sent out what are affectionately called, no, that's not the right word, affectionately, what are colorfully called the cherry sheets for all municipalities. And the town of Wareham was level funded for Chapter 70 and was level funded for general town aid. That is not good news for the town of Wareham. That means that basically we have, for education alone, assuming the town side meets the needs of the town administrator and the Board of Selectmen, that means for education alone, we have approximately a $3 million problem. So even this budget, which doesn't meet the needs that Dr. Sylvia has alluded to often and well, we're still $3 million in the hole. If I put that number into some kind of reality, that means that if we were to get this based on the revenues that we can anticipate, that the median taxpayer would have to come up with approximately $200 a year. I want to repeat that. To get that $3 million to educate our children and to give them a minimum budget will cost the median taxpayer $200. I hope that the opportunity for the taxpayers of this town to decide whether your children are worth investing that money, I hope you get the opportunity to make that decision. I, for one, think you deserve that choice, because the alternative, which is I now have to ask the Superintendent's Budget Advisory Committee to look very hard at this budget and make the assumption, recognize the reality that $3 million may not be available to us, and come up with something that is worse, but something we may have to live with. We cannot be unprepared for that fact. But I urge every taxpayer to ask themselves whether, if you're an average taxpayer, by the way, what is an average taxpayer? If your assessed value is about $213,000 on your tax bill, you are the median taxpayer. And as a median taxpayer, to get that $3 million for the schools would cost you approximately $200 a year. Having said that, the governor's budget is not the final word. I met with our representative, Susan Gifford Williams, and that was one of the things I talked to her about, as to whether House 1, as it's called, the governor's proposal, is realistic. She indicated to me it certainly could change, but I should also add that he used $400 million from the rainy day fund of the state just to get Wareham and other communities level funded for Chapter 70 and general town aid. So it's not clear whether that will be the final number, but I think we would be very optimistic to expect that there will be much more available coming to us from the state. Having said that, would anybody like to make a motion in support of shifting $100,000 from substitutes to textbooks?
Well, I know you're asking for a motion, but before I make a motion, I'd like to hear the superintendent's thought on that, because I almost feel it's some type of micromanaging. I want to see how he feels about moving money around within the budget, Mr. Chair.
Perfectly reasonable. Dr. Rabinovitch.
Let me first start off by saying that the budget process is a multi-month process. Started back in November. We had input from all of the managers, all of the principals. Everything that they asked for is in this budget. Now, it's unfortunate, but the reality is, because our budget has been cut year after year after year, because there hasn't been additional funding, people have got used to asking for less. But everything they asked for is in this budget. The high school asked for 2 new positions. They are in this budget. Now, as far as moving money from one account to another. It has unintended consequences. Currently, we're running RTI training for our 5th and K and 1 teachers. That means on a half day, those teachers are out of their rooms so that we can train them. If we don't, then they're not going to get trained and we won't be able to implement the program. So we look at the advantage that it can be by getting them trained. It's only a half day because the other half of a day is a professional day. It is one way the training is done. So, yep, that maybe there are some places that can be saved. When the days when the after exams and the senior teachers don't have any more classes, yep, they can be covering classes and not have substitutes at the high school for the month of May and June. But when people are out, and particularly in our elementary and middle schools, we have to have substitutes. We have maternity leaves. I've had 3 on my desk this week. We have to hire a substitute to cover those classes, certified, highly qualified. So to say that we're going to cut that money from that will have consequences. So that's my opinion.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Barry, when looking at that number, is there any amount that you feel at this time could be transferred over? Is there any number between 0 and 100,000 that you would feel comfortable with moving, since you've heard from the committee and also from your staff the need for materials?
With additional time, can we re-look at all of the line items? As Chairman Swett has said, the Budget Subcommittee, I'm going to be asking them to get together to go through this with a fine-tooth comb to see where we might achieve some savings. Is it possible that there may be some savings within the substitute line? Yes, it is possible, but I can't say that tonight off the cuff.
I think it should be clear that I really wasn't asking the advisory committee to get together to come up with savings. That would be a complete misnomer. They're just going to have to be cuts where cuts shouldn't be made. That's really what we're talking about. Let's be honest. We're going to be given a certain amount of money, and we can't overspend, and therefore we're going to have to cut if that $3 million is not made available to the children of Wareham. So I, with respect, I don't want the word savings to be associated with the cuts that would have to be made. Anything else before we entertain a vote?
Yeah.
Ken?
Mr. Chair, when I look at the budget, I'm looking at the total package, the bottom line. I just don't want to be in the position as a committee member, speaking for myself, to ask the superintendent, I understand the budget process, to at a meeting tonight, in a matter of 5 minutes in one motion, to move $100,000 out of a certain line item into another line item, because all this hard work then is right out the door. I'm comfortable approving the budget and the superintendent knowing the wishes of the committee, and as the process goes through, I'm sure during the time as the superintendent, correct me if I'm wrong stated, he can look at that, and there might be some opportunity to move money around, but I don't think that it's right for us to come here tonight and start making recommendations to move $100,000 out of one line to another, because I can dissect this whole thing and move money where I think it's necessary. So I just think we're opening up Pandora's box, Mr. Chair.
Well, just so you and others understand, I have been examining this budget with Dr. Rabinovitch and others for months. This was not an idle thing. It was based on lots of analysis beyond the normal. And in fact, it's the only, during this entire 2-month process, it's the only recommendation that I have made for any change. So if the school committee is supposed to, we clearly are not supposed to rubber stamp any number, and that's why I took this, I believe, thoughtfully. I also understand why Dr. Rabinovitch would want to defend the numbers that he has also thoroughly reviewed. But I respect your opinion as well. In the end, my guess is that whether the number is in 2305 or 2410 or whatever the number is, it's probably just because it's in the 2000s, it can probably be moved anyway, even after the budget process is over. So it was, it's not, I'm not uncomfortable with your feelings on the matter.
But my thing, Mr. Chair, is that I understand it's been a process and you've been involved for a long time with the superintendent, but as a committee member, I'm being asked to make take a vote on something that was just brought to my attention 2 minutes ago. I understand you did the background work, but I didn't. So for me to say, I'd like to make a motion to move $100,000 out of 2305 into 2306 or whatever the numbers are, I have a problem with that. That's what I'm saying. I'm putting my faith that the superintendent and his staff have done the work, as Dr. Rabinovitch stated, that the number that we are seeing is the number that the principals got what they asked for. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
I understand completely. Dr. Sylvia?
I'm not on the budget subcommittee, but I've sat on enough budget meetings, and I know the way the system works. I was a school administrator, and we try to do the best for the district, for our kids, and yet have a responsibility to the citizens and the taxpayers. Sometimes it's a hard ball to juggle. But with that being said, here in Wareham, and I've been to enough budget meetings to know that someone said it, I don't know who said it, but I think that that is the mindset of our administrators when they come into those budget meetings. I really need 10 of whatever, but I'll ask for 4. I think that's the mindset that our administrators come into those budget meetings for. We need X, but we'll settle for Y. Or maybe we can get somewhere or something. It's almost like we know what we really need, but we're kind of like too embarrassed to go and ask for it. Well, you know what? If we don't illuminate clearly what the situation is and what the problems are, they're never going to get talked about and they're never going to get solved. If the budget process is such that if we approve this budget tonight, which we probably will, knowing full well that there is going to be a cut process, then it really doesn't make much difference what this number says. We can ask for $35 million. We can ask for $50 million. It really doesn't matter. If the premise is that whatever's on this piece of paper is not going to be the final form anyways. So you know what I say? If we need $100,000 in teachers, let's put it in there. If we need $100,000 in textbooks, let's put it in there and let the chips fall where they may. So I would like to make that amendment. To add $100,000 to the teacher line item and add $100,000 to the textbook line item.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, we have an amendment on the floor and we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Aye. Abstain? Aye.
What do we got?
I don't know, I couldn't hear him.
3-2.
What did you vote?
Did I?
You said, and Ken, did you say?
Aye.
Okay, 320. Okay, so that's an additional 200,000.
To the 27,195, which now becomes 27,395,370.
Okay, that is, we need
The
a.
net school spending number.
Right. We need a motion for that amount, because that is now the main motion. Would someone like to make that motion?
Also move, I'll make the motion that we, I'm sorry, Barry, give me the number again. it will be 29,000?
No, 27
million.
million,
27 mil, no.
395.
Yeah, 27,395,370
Okay, I'll take that
on
as
net
a,
school spending.
I'll take that as a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
The only concern that I have is that if I absolutely understand where you're coming from, and I should have had this discussion before the other vote, and so I apologize for that, but for the same argument that we just made of not transferring from one line item to the next, we have gone through the budget process. We have had the recommendations from our administrators. We've gone through several discussions on this, and at this moment, adding to the budget that is already going to be an uphill battle, I have real concerns on approving the additional dollars in this budget. So I understand, I absolutely understand, and that we all agree that there is just not enough, but I feel that the statement that it makes, when we are already going to have such an uphill battle just to get the budget that's in front of us right now passed, I just find that it's going to be difficult if we approve additional funds tonight.
It's going to be difficult, no, through you, Mr. Chairman, it's going to be difficult no matter what. But this is our budget. Mm-hmm. We can amend it, change it any way we want. It's our budget. And the amendment could have got voted down. It's my statement saying that we don't have enough in those two line items, in my opinion, for a variety of reasons. So, and it's going to be an uphill battle. It's always an uphill battle. I mean, that's nothing new. So if we need the extra funds, let's put it in there, you know, and go from this. It's a statement, and it's about time that we started to say we are not going to settle anymore, that we are going to do whatever it takes to provide equitable education for all of our kids. And right now, it's not equitable. They're going down the road, and they get textbooks and programs.
Through you, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Again, I would agree. I would want to look at, I think we would all look at different line items in this budget and want to increase it by some number. Technology is where I would want to put $500,000 to be able to have electronic textbooks, so then we would be able to decrease the textbook line item because we're investing in technology and we're able to get the information online.
Point of information, actually, by putting it there, that's theoretically possible to use it for that as well.
Okay. I want new basketballs because I feel that it's important that it helps us. But my point is that, again, we've gone through this budget process, but I do understand that the motion has already been passed, so I will, that's all I have to say.
What has been added to the budget by the amendment is less than 1%.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that would get me to vote against it, but let's be clear about the process from here forward. On Tuesday, January 31st, and a committee called an action committee will be meeting for the first time at 7 p.m. It will be an open meeting. There will be 5 voting members plus some other members. I hope the FinCom will be there, as well as other people who might have things to tell the committee that would be helpful in their decision-making. Although ultimately, they're not so much a decision-making body as an advisory body, because everything comes down to town meeting and the voters. But this action committee will be charged with doing several things. One is that we'll be looking at transportation, which we hope finally we will stop talking about it and start doing something. The second thing, it will be asked to figure out, once we've decided what to do with transportation, how to actually pay for what we decide to do, which is no small issue. And thirdly, I hope we will also get to the point of addressing what a contingent budget would look like for town meeting. And the budget that we are about to vote on would become part of that contingent budget, which is to say, if it passed town meeting and then went to the voters and in fact was passed by the voters, then it would become the budget as we voted on, or about to vote on rather. It would become the budget for the schools as well as the town. If it did not pass, then a second budget would have to exist so the town meeting had something else to approve, vote on, and approve. So that's the process between now and town meeting. And after town meeting, there would be a vote only if the contingent budget was approved by town meeting. That's my understanding. And of course, that the Board of Selectmen decided to put that contingent budget in whatever form, meaning it could be simply one number, or it could be a menu of things that citizens could choose from to decide that they wanted to fund with extra revenue from their tax dollars. That's all by way of information. Any other discussion on the motion? Yes, Dr. Rabinovitch.
Just on the piece of information that you shared, in order, if a contingent budget is passed at town meeting, either as a number or by menu, then to get that extra revenue, it has to be a vote of the public. And in order to get an override on the ballot, I was told today by the town's attorney that you need 4 out of 5 select people to vote for that warrant article. 4 out of 5. I had thought it was 3 out of 5, and Mr. Bowen corrected me.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
point of order. Can we vote on this motion and then we can have this discussion later?
yes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? I think I heard 5-0-0. Okay, we now have a vote on non-net or transportation.
So we are looking for $1,585,277.
I'll take a motion,
Wait,
and we can discuss after it's been seconded.
wait a minute.
Dr. Sylvia?
Can you just hold a second before you have a motion?
Yes?
Should I have abstained on that school spending? I gotta do that.
I hate to prolong the meeting, Mr. Chairman, but I misspoke. And it might make some people happy. I'm going to ask that the vote on net school spending be reconsidered. Where I voted in the affirmative, I have to ask for reconsideration because I think I was in error in voting for that number. I think I have to abstain from that number.
Okay. Who seconded the motion?
Well, you just have to vote for reconsideration. Just second my motion for reconsideration.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of reconsideration?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Okay.
I'm sorry, committee.
problem.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay. The motion is now before us is the main motion from the prior vote for net school spending number of $27,395,370.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
should we consider the amendment also,
That
considering
include-
that I made it?
Yes, we probably should.
I think I'm in error here.
Yes.
And I would not want this to come back to haunt us.
Okay.
In my exuberance and passion,
Okay.
I would like to,
To reconsider
reconsider
the-
the amendment.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
All right, now we're back to square one.
We're back to square
And I'm
one.
going to
I
keep
have
my
a
mouth
lot to
shut.
say then.
You have a lot to say. And I want to keep my mouth shut.
Okay. So, does any member want to put forward the amendment that is being reconsidered?
What was that amendment, Mr.
That
Chairman?
added
$100 each.
$100,000 to classroom teachers and $100,000 to textbooks.
I will make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Abstain. 2, 1. The motion does not carry. Okay, we now have a motion for net school, I'll take a motion for net school spending of $27,195,370.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
I'll abstain.
Okay, so that's 3, 1, 1. Now, we need a motion for non-net school spending or transportation. The amount being proposed by the superintendent is $1,585,277.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? 500. And now I believe we need a motion for the grand total, which I believe is $28,780,647.
Correct.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm opposed.
Aye.
Abstain? 3, 2, 0. Okay.
Mr. Chair, could I just have an explanation? Do you think an explanation would be in order here so people are not confused as to what just happened?
Sure, go right ahead.
I apologize to everybody in the audience and to the committee again in my exuberance. I'm not allowed by state law to vote on the non-net school spending because of a potential conflict of interest. I have a family member that works in the system, and so because the salary line item is on that part of the budget, I shouldn't vote. I don't think it's illegal, but I really shouldn't vote on it. So that's why I couldn't. After I pondered on it for about 13 seconds, I said, "Yep, you've done it again. You opened your mouth and inserted your foot." I think everyone can appreciate my passion and appreciate my rationale. It's just unfortunate that I'm in a position where I cannot offer that as an amendment. So that is why I had a vote to withdraw it. So I hope you all understand. It was a complete oversight on my part. And again, my apologies to the committee.
No problem. Thank you. Ken?
Mr. Chair, can you repeat, or Michelle, the vote on the total budget of $3,780,647. I thought you said 3-2, but there's an abstention.
No,
What was
I
that vote?
voted no.
You voted no,
Yes.
3-2.
but he couldn't vote on,
I could vote on the total.
okay.
Okay? Okay. Yes,
Are we still staying on the budget?
we can if you like.
Okay. I'd like to make a recommendation going forward. There is still some confusion and/or distrust when it comes to the school budget. Things, you hear things like make do with what you have, too much on overhead, not enough in the classroom. And I know that that's all chatter, but I think that there's that piece of it, but then there is also parents that I think want to understand the funding of the school system, where the money comes from, what is the percentage, what does it mean, where are the increases. And so I'd like to recommend to the superintendent that we start a communication plan, or if we look at different ways that we can educate the community on the budget. I know that there's a meeting that is 8 hours long. It's on TV. I know that we presented 3 times, but for the parents in our community that are busy, that don't have time, I would like to create Budget 101, or similar to what we're all given when we first start the budget process. A very easy, simple way to understand where the funding is coming from, what are each one of the line items, and so that is one piece of an article or something that can be put up on the website, that can be put in the newspapers, but a simple, bulleted item that goes through very simply where the funding comes from, how much comes from the town, how is that calculated, a very simple blurb on Chapter 70. I think that it would just go a long way in helping to educate our town on the budget and the reason why we're asking for what we're asking for. And I think that it would go a long way in helping people understand going into town meeting. So this Budget 101, and I'm happy to help with what I'm thinking around what are the different topics. That would be one thing. The other piece is I know that there were two of the studies that were put up online regarding transportation. But there is also the latest, Geoff, that you've put together that I think does a very good job of analyzing the true costs of transportation. I think we talked about the last time we were together, maybe putting together a little blurb next to each one of the line items so then folks understand what the analysis means. But that would be something that I would also ask is shared online. I know that we have an action committee. It will probably be shared with them. It already has with some members. But I think that that is another nice document that should be shared with the community with a breakdown and explanation of what all that means. Again, I understand that we do provide a lot of information out there in its entirety. I'm sure that I hope folks don't fall asleep if they do decide to review the 8-hour meeting or any of the meetings that are here, but I think that a very simple press release or article in our newspapers, online, whatever we can do to really break it down on the budget process. I think it would help us. And I have one more, so.
Go ahead.
The other piece that Dr. Rabinovitch that I'd like you to consider is between now and town meeting is to maybe offer office hours, open hours, for folks that have questions on the budget specifically, to come in to ask their questions regarding the documents that they have either downloaded online, or if they have questions on the budget, either you or Ms. Miranda, a way that folks can come in for scheduled hours, even if they're monthly, to walk through some of the questions that they might have. So those are my two recommendations going forward to educate the citizens of Wareham around the school budget, again, in the spirit of transparency, a way that folks can understand it and then be able to follow up with questions.
Thank you, Rhonda. Just a final thought. I think there are two fundamental problems associated with this effort, although I think Rhonda is 100% correct in the things that could and should be done. But I've had multiple coffees, breakfasts, etc., with parents as recently as yesterday. And yesterday was all about trying to understand the budget. It is very clear to me that there are two fundamental problems beyond not understanding all these numbers, the education process, if you will, to which Rhonda referred. One is there is a national distrust of leadership. It's obvious. It's been around for decades and it's not getting any better. And once you've lost it, it's really hard to get it back. So we can sit here and say that we need X dollars. In this case, it's $3,200,000 from the average family. But if you don't trust the people saying that, it doesn't make any difference. And the second thing is, $200 is a lot of money to some folks. And that's who they would rather put it towards a college fund or something else that they desperately need, or maybe it's just a new roof or something. So if we don't make people feel that $200 is a great investment in their community and their children and perhaps other people's children or grandchildren, then we are, I could use an expression, but it's probably not right for the public, we're not going to succeed. So I think in addition to the education to which you refer, and I think it's critical, I think we also have to try desperately to earn the trust of the people who will be asking to make that investment. And that means being as open and as honest as possible about what's going on in the schools and more broadly in the town and why it's costing all this money. Anything more on the budget process before we move on? Yes, Rachel.
I mean, you keep talking about the $200.
Yes.
But that was based on what income level?
It's based on the median assessed value of a taxpayer. So if you look at your tax bill, and it says you're assessed at $213,000.
Okay, so that really isn't. I mean, there's a lot of people. I think the people that are looking at that number and going, "Are you kidding me?" are probably people under that level. I think that if you're not there, then I mean, there's a lesser number. So for the people that are really struggling and that are at the absolute, it's not going to be that much of a. No,
if you're assessed at $100,000, for example, right. And it wouldn't be $200.
So
it would be $100.
We keep putting out the $200, so I don't want to keep putting that out there and panicking.
Thank
people,
you.
Because you're right, $200 over the course of a year is really not much. I mean, you break it down and it's not much for certain income levels, and you can justify it. You can, I have kids in the school, so I can live with that. But I don't want to keep throwing out 200 because I think for some people that are going to get scared from that.
$50 a quarter.
Yeah, I mean it's
for the median taxpayer. But Rachel's 100% correct. If your assessed value is significantly less than that, then your liability is significantly less. I'm more, being really candid, I'm more concerned about people whose assessed value is a lot more than that, and don't feel that they have a huge vested interest in the schools because their kids are long gone, and why do they want to pay any more taxes? And all I would say to you is, there's a social contract that says we educate the next generation, and it's real, and it's essential, and you must feel that way because that's what's necessary for a community to be successful.
But on top of that, you may have that value, but if our schools tank, your property value goes down, and now you're losing a lot more than $200 a year.
Agree
So
completely.
if you want to get it down to the pocket, down to the dollar, for those that feel that they don't feel, and they're living up here and they're having, the easier life, well, you know what, if it tanks, that, you're gonna lose that too. So, I mean, not to be, just to be blunt about it.
You're right. Yes, Dr. Sylvia.
We gotta be careful also. Can I put the flip side on that?
Yes.
We gotta be careful also because folks out here in the audience have heard me expound on my frustration over the years with the level of funding that Wareham Public Schools has had, and I'm very frustrated about it, and I have a tendency to be loud about it, especially when I'm frustrated about something. When I care about something, I care about it very deeply. But we can't lose sight of the fact that we can't send the wrong message. Good things are happening in Wareham. I don't want people out there thinking that this school system is not doing well. We're doing well on a lot of fronts. All of our kids are passing the MCAS. All of our kids are showing progress on AYP. We have award-winning programs in our district. We've been recognized for innovation in all schools. We've had National Merit Scholarship finalists. We've got kids getting into Ivy League schools. So, we are doing it, and we're doing a pretty good job with a situation that is almost not workable. So, we want to stress the fact that the resources or the lack of resources over a great number of years has affected the quality of education, but we can't lose sight of the fact that in spite of the lack of resources, our professional staff and our kids are still performing at a very high level, and we can't lose sight of that fact.
2/3.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anything else on the budget before we move off? Anna, would you put the PowerPoint up? I have a 100-slide PowerPoint I'd like to show you. Just kidding, Jessica.
Jessica's got finals.
As some of you may be aware, I participated on a statewide committee. There was only about a dozen people, thankfully, on this committee. It was about half representing superintendents and half representing school committees, and a number of people from the State Department of Education, elementary and secondary education. And the purpose of it was to look at the very top of the organizational chart with respect to the new regulations regarding the evaluation of people who are in education. We have focused a lot on the evaluation of teachers, but in fact the regulations go all the way up to the superintendent. I included in your packet a lengthy, three lengthy documents, which I'm sure you read word for word.
Pretty close.
Good, thank you. I really only want to focus on three quick things because it is far too important and far too involved to address in this context of a school committee meeting. Would you put up the one slide that I have? This circle is the essence of what is expected for every teacher, every administrator, including the superintendent. It is a cycle. They are not telling us when this cycle should start, although one could assume that the self-assessment on the very top would be during some downtime, maybe even on vacation, when every individual, whether teacher or superintendent, does a little bit of a self-assessment based upon perhaps the prior year's summative evaluation. How good or how poorly did I do in my summative evaluation, or how well? So that's the first step, is a self-assessment. The next step is to actually set some goals, do some analysis, and some planning and development for what you're going to do with during the next cycle. Once you've done that, you can actually start implementing. Sometime in February, I guess we've decided the 29th of February, because one of the things we will be discussing next is to move the February meeting from the 15th to the 29th. Dr. Rabinovitch will actually be presenting the status of his goals, sort of a mid-cycle review. That would be appropriate for a teacher. It's also appropriate for a superintendent. It's an opportunity to say things are going well, they were realistic, perhaps they weren't realistic, maybe we should tweak them. The bottom line is it's a review process of the goals that you've had, in this case for the district. And then finally, at the end of the cycle, there's an actual summative evaluation. In this case, we're talking about the superintendent. The only other thing I would add to this process, which does need to be implemented, in our case, we really should be starting that implementation now, which is why I've asked Dr. Rabinovitch to do his mid-cycle review next meeting. But we are an early adopter, and so we really need to start this process. But realistically, it is also something, just as the Teachers Association is negotiating and has been discussing this with management for 2 years, we will be sitting down with Dr. Rabinovitch to talk about how this process should go in detail, because there are some things that have been legislated and are regulated and some things that are not. So this cycle has been essentially legislated. The next piece that I didn't bother making a PowerPoint for is the actual rubric, but you've seen it in your documents. For those of you unfamiliar with a rubric, this means that the definition of what a great superintendent is defined. And then the school committee goes about the process of trying to figure out to what extent our superintendent has met that definition. There are 4 levels, just as there are with teachers: proficient, needs improvement, unsatisfactory, and for those rare individuals, and the state made a point of saying this is rare for a teacher and it will be rare for a superintendent, exemplary. So any teacher or superintendent or administrator in between who thinks that they're going to jump out of the box and be an exemplary educator, that is not what the state envisions. They envision that being a very rare individual. But the school committee is required to look at the rubric, look at the description of what exemplary, proficient, needs improvement, and unsatisfactory is, and then for each individual element to decide to what extent that has been achieved. Now, some of this has been legislated. The actual standards have been legislated. The actual indicators have been legislated. What has not been legislated and regulated are the specific elements of those indicators and the descriptions of those elements. That will need to be negotiated, discussed, and I suspect it could be a lengthy process. And then finally, there is a goal-setting process. The state has said that there must be goals associated with professional development and also instruction. After that, you could have theoretically any number of goals, but the expectation is there would be a total of perhaps 3, 4, 5 goals in total. Now, I would add that thanks to the work done by prior school committees, we're actually pretty far ahead in this process. We don't have a precise rubric, but we have goals, and they are, as my colleague Rhonda would say, SMART goals. Those didn't always exist, but they now exist as a part of our superintendent evaluation. I think I'll stop there and open it up to questions, but one of the things I want to plant the seed of is that we either need an empowered subcommittee of the school committee to sit down with the superintendent and really knock this out so that we have a document that we can go forward with. the most difficult one being the rubric itself, or we need a workshop of the entire committee, a Saturday morning sometime when it's snowing, where we knock it out as an entire committee. Either way, we would bring it back to a school committee meeting to discuss, to vote on, et cetera. But this is not something that can be done in the context of a school committee meeting such as this. So with that, I will take some questions.
Mr.
Ken.
Chair, is the intent of this to replace what we currently have?
Yes. We must replace it.
Okay, so it's mandated.
It's mandated.
Okay.
We have certain discretion, but we have some things where we have no discretion.
My feelings, Mr. Chair, is I would rather be in a meeting with the entire board, because I think when you do a subcommittee, we're going to come back and it's going to go back and forth in the importance of this. I can't speak for my fellow members here, but I would be more comfortable in a meeting to knock this out and go forward with it.
I agree with you, which is why I put in my email, which I think was forwarded to you, that a workshop is probably the way to go. Any other thoughts, comments, questions on this process?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
This circle chart, was there any discussion around having a second self-assessment before the summative evaluation? When the goal-setting or evaluation process that I've been used to is that before the supervisor or the board would evaluate the employee, that the employee had an opportunity to evaluate how they think that they did before the committee, in this case the committee, but the supervisor would then give their feedback. So
the short answer is no, and the reason is because this is carved in stone. There was, let me be clear to everybody who's here or watching and listening. There was I think 50, is that correct? I think it was a 50-member task force that actually came out with the regulations that were ultimately signed into law. This is their work, and that is now carved in stone.
okay.
That was the interesting part about being part of this committee. There were certain things that we could discuss, and there were times when the Deputy Commissioner of Education would say, that's already done, we can't modify that.
But from a local level, we would follow this, but we could add if we wanted to. We could add that piece into it, to the evaluation process, if we wanted to. I know it's mandated, but you're always allowed to add on in a positive way to mandates, aren't you? Or do they prevent positive additions?
You can't eliminate any of those circles, but you could theoretically add to them. That is correct.
Thank you.
Yes. Anything else? Yes, Cliff.
So these sample evaluation forms that we got as examples?
Yep.
They're still a work in progress in Malden, is that correct?
They are not fixed in stone in any way, shape, or form. We can work with them as long as what's included in them are those minimal levels related to what the state.
And that's what I read.
We actually have the most flexibility with that.
That's what I read. I read that as long as we meet the standards and the indicators,
Right.
that we can develop the instrument any way we see fit. Is that
Correct.
correct? So it would not be highly within the realm of possibility that we could start with the instrument that we have now and modify it in any way, shape, or form to conform with this law.
It
Are
theoretically.
you suggesting that we throw the old one out and bring the new one in, or are you suggesting that we look at the old one? Because, to be quite honest with you, I was on a subcommittee that developed that evaluation. I think it's pretty comprehensive. It's certainly more comprehensive than anything I've seen in town and any other group in evaluating their chief executive officer. It's standard-based, it's goal-driven, it's quantified.
There's no question that we're in the 90th percentile already.
So, those are just my questions, are we throwing that evaluation instrument, which I consider to be pretty comprehensive, for a not developed, still on the drawing board instrument that the Department of Education is working on?
The only thing,
I guess that's my question.
yeah, the answer to the question is, as long as there were at least 2 goals in the format, and those 2 goals involved instruction and professional development, and as long as the sections included all of the standards and indicators,
Which most of them do in our instrument.
then we could modify to our heart's content. Yes, that is correct.
The second question,
And of course, we had this cycle as,
Right.
as amended or added to.
the second part of it, so that they, even though they're taking away a good part of our local control, they're still leaving part of this process in the hands of local school committees across the Commonwealth.
I think when Glenn Kuchar came down here and described us as a high-functioning school committee, that wasn't just being nice. It was very clear to me from the discussions we had in the committee that most school committees